Have you ever stood in front of the mirror at 2 o'clock in the morning with scissors in hand and thought, if I just chop all of this off, everything will be all right? Or maybe you marched into a salon right after a big breakup or bad diagnosis, kid going off to college, whatever, and just looked at your stylist and said, cut it all off. We call this the crisis haircut. It's that urge to change everything on the outside when everything on the inside is going through complete chaos. But here's the real question we're going to talk about today, and that is the haircut really a big mistake, or is it medicine for the soul? Hi, I'm Ann Johnson. Y'all ready to chat? Welcome to 60 and Ready to Chat. This is where we talk about things no one else wants to talk about, like gray hair, menopause, children growing up and leaving us, and everything in between. And today, we're talking about hair. But let's be honest, we're not really talking about hair. We're talking about control. We're talking about grief. We're talking about when life falls apart, we take it out on our bangs. Let's get real when we're talking about the urge to cut your hair. Psychologists call it regaining agency. Here's what that means in kitchen table talk. So much of what's going on in our 50s is totally out of our control. I mean, we cannot control our parents getting sick. We can't control our kids growing up and making decisions we wouldn't have made when we were that age. We can't control gravity. It's definitely can't control gravity. We can't control having to have a special skin routine just for our necks. These are all things we can't control, but there is one thing we can't control, and that's on top of our head. Hair is instant, it's visible, and it's symbolic. You can walk into a salon feeling like one person and walk out feeling like somebody totally different. And your brain rewards you for it. It gives you a shot of dopamine, which tells you, yeah, I can do something about my problems. I'm not helpless. So if you're thinking about getting your hair cut, dyed, whatever, for a change, because life is throwing you curveballs, I want to say this as gently as possible. You're not losing your mind. You're just looking for a steering wheel. One thing I would like to steer you toward is the subscribe button, if you could. I really appreciate it if you could tap it. It really helps me out. Thank you. Let me tell you about my own version of the crisis cut. It was during a time in my life, in my early 50s, where my kid was a teenager and demanding independence. My job was a wreck. A new company had just bought it and didn't quite like anyone in their 50s. They liked youth. So you can imagine how that went over for me. And I just felt blah. Not just from life in general, but menopause was raging in me at that point. And I thought, I'm going to get my hair cut. I'm going to make a change. I walked into a salon and I said, I want a bob. And I don't want a Pinterest board bob. I want an extreme bob. And that's what I got. The kind that says, I am a new woman and everyone in the grocery store needs to notice me. That kind of bob. And when I watched the hair fall down to the floor, when it was being cut, not only did it feel lighter on my neck, but I felt kind of lighter in the chest. There's an old idea, I remember my grandmother talking about this, that hair holds memories. And the longer the hair, the more memories you have. And cutting it could feel like you're shedding those memories. And I thought about that when I was getting my hair cut. I'm shedding these old memories. For a few days, I walked around feeling like I had just walked into a new chapter of my life. But here's the honest part. It didn't solve my problems, but it did give me emotional breathing room to start facing them. But how do you know if your crisis haircut is a mistake or if it's medicine? Let's start with the mistake. It's a mistake if you're expecting your haircut to do the emotional heavy lifting. If you're thinking that once you get a pixie cut, you won't feel bad about your divorce anymore, or once you go blonde, people will notice you at work, or even once I dye my hair and get rid of the gray, I won't feel old anymore. That's a setup, because here's what actually happens. You'll still feel sad with that pixie cut. You'll just now have cold ear. Now let's talk about the medicine. It is medicine when the haircut is symbolic, when you've already done some of the work, where you've cried your eyes out, you've journaled, you've talked to a good friend or therapist, and you've worked on what is making you sad, upset, feel out of control, whatever the reason is. Then you go to the salon, because now it's your outside catching up with your inside. The change is a good change. That's when it feels powerful, and that's when it's a declaration, not a distraction. And speaking about the salon, can we talk about how the salon is basically a confessional booth? I don't know about you, but sitting in that chair with a cape around my neck suddenly makes me want to tell my entire story to my stylist. I can get out how my kid hasn't called in 3 weeks, my husband won't listen, I'm putting on weight, and meanwhile, she's saying, wow, that's not good. Do you want a lot of layers with that? But here's what's really happening in the chair. You're being witnessed. You're being seen in a moment where you're vulnerable. And sometimes that's what we're craving, the human connection, not the haircut. So if you're feeling the itch right now to cut your hair, before you grab the scissors or book the appointment, I want you to ask yourself some of these questions. Number 1, what just happened in your life? Timing tells a story. Did you just have a bad breakup, retirement, some sort of loss? Is that why you want to get your hair cut? These moments often trigger the urge for a physical change. What do you actually want to feel? Do you want to feel stronger, lighter, more in control? Because sometimes a haircut is just a stand-in for a deeper need. And the third thing you should ask yourself right now is, what would taking care of yourself look like if you didn't cut your hair? Maybe take care of yourself by taking a walk, talking to a friend, eliminating something from your life that's been dragging you down. Any of these things before you decide to cut your hair. The hair can come later. The real transformation doesn't happen in the salon. It happens in the quiet moment. You decide, I'm allowed to change. You decide, I'm allowed to outgrow who I used to be. And you decide you're allowed to take up space in the next chapter of your life. The haircut, it's just an outward symbol. So if you're holding the scissors in your hand, or you've booked a salon appointment, ask yourself, am I trying to run away from something? Or do I want to show the woman I've become? I want to hear your stories. Did you ever break up chop or a midlife makeover? Did you like it? Did you regret it? Tell us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for the chat.